We're back Harry Potter style in the cupboard for a super round recap that was worth remembering to the bone. Tons of great matches, a lot of Are You Entertained memes, and rightfully so, coming out of the Super Rugby and South Pacific area. MLR opening weekend, not the greatest. We'll talk about that in a little bit. And the massive success of the NRL in Vegas cannot be missed. We have a lot to get through. Let's get into it.
I need all the wins, yeah. Ain't no L's, I gotta get a no call and quits, yeah. Gotta keep on moving no matter how hard.
Here comes Danny Tusizawa, back to Baker, Baker with the fin. Kurt Baker in for DC, and this may well do it old glory with the try. The New Zealand Sevens legend, Kurt Baker with the cherry on top.
Can you believe it?
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the On the Line Rugby Podcast, a show brought to you by the Blue Sports Network. I'm your host, Mike Nagaishi, and welcome back. You know, Super Round Melbourne probably has not been this entertaining in, 3 or 4 years. I'm really glad to see all the bottom teams rising up. I think this was a theme overall across the world this weekend. You know, no Six Nations, tons of teams vying for blood, a lot of revenge matches, and I was very proud of all of them. The bottom is making its way back up. Parity is emerging, and on top of that, a little bit of cast-off fever, I think, especially from the Blues. And I think they're a perfect way to start, so let's get into it. You know, as for Sam Derry, I was really disappointed to see him hurt again with a knee injury coming off early. Excuse me. You know, without Patrick Tuipulotu in that lineup early as the captain to guide that team, you really saw Derry really step up. You know, obviously in fantasy over the last 2 years, he's been an absolute unit. He's earned my starting spot in fantasy until he got hurt, unfortunately, but you know, you saw the continual growth, not only at the breakdown and at lineouts, but just carrying with ball in hand. I really think Derry is going to be the future of that blue jersey in the lock position. I don't know what they're going to really look for in terms of protection for him moving forward. They're not really going to have a lot of options, at least quality-wise, in my personal opinion. So I think they're going to have to dig deep and maybe bring Hoskins to Tutu in at lock, and then have to maybe put a Kiriawane at 8 and get Anton Segner into that opening lineup. Something has to be done if they cannot bring back Patrick Tuipulotu. I don't know what, but something. I think that's going to be a big talking point over the next couple of weeks on how bad Sam Derry's knee injury is, and where they could go from there. As for the rest of their attack, you know, I was really impressed with how physical it still managed to be. The Blues continue to cite Vern Cotter's conditioning as the principal thing behind their attack, and you could really see it. You know, they were able to play a full 80. Normally they get gassed after like the first 40, and then obviously, you know, take down to the white side. So it was nice to really see them continue to press the physicality. It was a ton of good games. You know, they started a little junk with tons of ruck watching and a little bit of missed tackles, but then they cleaned it up in the middle half, you know, that 20 to 60th minute, and obviously let the last 30 slide as per usual. I would love to say that Hoskins, Tutu, and Dalton Papali'i continue to put themselves in that contention for man of the match, and not only that, for really putting themselves forward as probably the premier loose forwards in New Zealand. You know, so Tutu continues his barnstorming effort with a hat trick this weekend. Dalton Papali'i continues to set himself apart by being a fast flanker on the wing, you know, continues to be in the mix with the breakdowns, always putting his head in a dark place, continuing to put himself in great positions to win front forward ball. But I think, unfortunately, if you look at it, it's really down to an indictment of the Blues' lack of control rather than the Landers' inability to come back. And I'll say this because Reece Patchell has opened up the Highlanders game. You know, I was not expecting a lot out of the Landers in terms of where they were going to go at 10, given the fact that Freddie Burns is gone. And his whole company, including Mitch Hunt. But, you know, Patchell is doing the most. Not only is he managing the space in the backfield, but he's also pushing the ball forward through grubs, through kicking, putting themselves in position to really let the wings shine. You know, I think the one big thing that the Landers have is that wing position, specifically Jacob Ratuvuki Neepkins. Apologies if I butchered that. And on top of that, you still have Jordan Nareki, who is coming back and still looking great. Sam Gilbert is still going to be that guy with the boot off the leg. And Patchell, I think, is a perfect complement to that. I just think that the Landers really did not dominate set piece the way I expected, with losing 4 out of their 5 in scrums and lineouts. You just can't do that. It's a game of margins. Obviously, the Blues have more quality than the Landers, but you gotta be able to find your place on the field, whether it is through breakdown dominance or set piece dominance. And if you can't get one of those together, especially against an elite team like the Blues, they're gonna carve you up all day, every day if you let them. And you could really see that with Steven Perofeta just basically running it back from his own half instead of just taking it and kicking it into touch. But in terms of outside of that, you really saw that the Blues connection with the cast-offs from that team continue to shine in all parts of the field. Neepkins continues to put himself up as one of the fastest and most elite players in Super Rugby. I don't know how he managed to not make at least a couple starting caps in that Blues loaded lineup. But the Blues continue to develop great players, whether or not it's for other clubs or not. The Landers connection is there, and it's wonderful to see. As for the Rebels win, spoiler alert for all those who didn't watch, I really think you should watch that game, because the Melbourne Rebels are, like I said, they are going to put themselves up for a Cinderella story to finish off the year. Whether or not they come back or not, whether or not they come back or not next year is not a worry to them. They are continuing to just dominate in everything that they do and continuing to show why they need to be up there, and not only in the middle of the lineup, just continuing to compete for a quarterfinal spot, but perhaps even a semifinal bye. I truly think for Australia, the Rebels are probably next to the Taz, the kings of that conference. You look at Andrew Kellaway, while he continues to screw up a couple tries, he really did not look good early. He really puts himself in contention to really win at the breakdown. And not only that, to do the dirty work, he was running behind forward pods, connecting Carter Gordon's attack, and really starting to slip through the field. And that's how he got most of his tries. Hat trick this week to really clean it up. I think he's earned it. We saw a lot of big things from the forward pack, obviously through Salakai Loto. He's really enforcing his signing well with physical attack, dominating at the lineout. And obviously his positioning and scrums have been insane with Taniela Tupou. I really think that Reds duo has really infused that Chiefs set piece play with a lot, and I mean a lot, of confidence and power. I think what's really scary is that the Rebels, maybe it's because of the penalties to Dungunu last week, but they just lack the intensity on D with line speed and physicality at the tackle portion. When you looked at a lot of what they did, it would seem to be a lot more cover defense than it was rush or blitz. I expected them to be a little bit more aggressive, especially trying to stop them. But such is life. They come back. They started off a little low, but they came back late. 39 unanswered points to really set it off. I'm very proud of them. I really, I felt that they should have attacked more, because the Force are going to take you at the flat line a lot more than other teams. Maybe if it was the Brumbies and Corey Toole, or I guess you could say kind of the Reds with like a Josh Fluke and a Jordan Pataya. Yeah, maybe they do more of a cover, but you really could have enforced the rush, because when they started doing it late, it really showed, and you'll see why. The Force off of Ben Donaldson really looked to be a transformed team. They take to go for more offloads and win the short side of the field. They don't tend to spin it out wide, which I think is nice. You see a lot of more teams trying to spread the field widthwise and play more of that wide ball. But, Donaldson continues to attack that blind side, and I think that that's the Rebels' weakness, because they continue to let that go. And you saw that with Donaldson just taking dummy after dummy and running through that line. It took them to the second half, around the 50th minute, to really stop that, and that really shows the quality of him. Donaldson really was overlooked in the Taz, and it's nice to see him shine more in a 10 rather than 15 spot. Obviously, like I said, with Kellaway, he continued to capitalize on those support lines late. He was really the I would say the linchpin behind that comeback effort, as Carter Gordon continues to be a mixed bag. I'm not sure, like I said again last week, if it was the World Cup blues or not, but Carter Gordon continues to almost rush. I don't know why he's not relaxing. He continues to doink it off the posts. In attack, he looks good, with a little bit of flat play, but he's just not taking it normally with the ball as much as he did last year. While he did have a great pick score, it wasn't exactly what I expected. That was one play. I expected a lot more of his running style than what I got. Especially on defense, while he's there most of the time, it wasn't like last week where he was like bringing physicality into it. And that obviously, like I said, is an indictment of the rest of the team, but perhaps Gordon's a little bit more mentally not there than I had expected. I think they need to maintain that level of intensity on both sides of the field to end on full time, rather than either starting off slow and then coming back, or starting off really strong and then obviously tapering off. They need that full 80 to really translate to see where they can go. I think this team has the highest potential, but also one of the lowest floors in all of Super Rugby. I would love to see them really expand on these opportunities. They have the shots and really the talent right now to capitalize on a great Cinderella year. It will be nice to see them do something and to prove the naysayers wrong. Australian rugby doesn't have to die the way everyone's expecting it to. And I think the Rebels would be the greatest showcase of that. As for their current conference mates in Fiji, who I personally thought would be doing a lot better than what I've seen, I really don't know what's going on with them. They continue to lack a lot of fundamentals in terms of defense than I was expecting. For example, they had a whole phase versus Moana where they constantly were just missing the shifts over at the goal line defense to stop pick and goes. They left the whole side wide open. I was really not expecting that. And it was a 4-man deep crew. Like, come on, guys. We got to do better than that. Missed tackles and then missing the blind side. They allowed that 11 for Moana. I'm missing out on his name. But to get like 4 or 5 deep 50-plus meter line breaks, whoever had him in fantasy really scored out, because while he did not score with those, just the fact of like that amount of meters, you're constantly putting yourselves on the back foot. Obviously we all know that the Fijians, while they do play well, once they get gassed, they get gassed. And that's not going to help when you're putting your team constantly in that position. Moana just kept sending it wide. It was almost clinical. You knew what they were going to do, and they constantly kept doing it. It was really nice to see, though, that William Havili and friends, Nigel Awong, Christian Lealiofano come out and play. Their continuing ability to develop and really manage that field. Moana looked definitely more ready for the attack. They looked better under Tana Umaga, continuing again with their second half adjustments and really moving with that team. I don't know what's happening. Fiji should be better. They were the quarterfinal contenders. They were the Cinderella story of last year. And now they just missed opportunities saved by amazing talent. Now it looks almost like the Blues. I don't understand what's going on here. Like I said, Tana Umaga is going to do miracles for that team, but he's not going to be doing this overnight. Or if he is, I'm really impressed, because I really expected Fiji to really just hammer at least physicality. They didn't even really do that. It was like the most bland game I thought of Super Rugby that I had seen and overall this year. But, just they're not poised anymore. Like, maybe it's the lack of leadership. Maybe they need to go back to Tavita and Canaveri at captain. They seem to be a little bit more composed during that. I'm not saying that the captain really is the problem, but maybe you got to, mix something up, throw something in. I have no idea. Just throw something new into the mix that hasn't been done or was done last year. Perhaps losing some of their talent overseas really has hurt them, like I said last week. We'll yet to see their attack, but if you put them against a more clinical team like the Blues, they get shut out. I think their next real test is going to be against the Chiefs and the Brumbies. And if they can't do that, man, I I don't see them moving anywhere past the 8th or 9th mark in the rankings. They're going to need to really look at themselves hard in the mirror, take those real advances well, and shake something up in order to make something happen for them. As for another team that I think a lot of people were overlooking, I got flamed out for this take on Instagram, but I really think that this is now proving to be the case, at least early, knock on wood, that the Taz are coming to play. Tane Edmond is finally coming into his own, and Max Jorgensen is really shining as a space manager at fullback. Using both of them using their boots and their ability to run with the ball and offload is a beautiful thing to see. Edmond, I thought at one point would have the ceiling of a prime Caleb Trask in 2019, 2020. Turns out it's much better than that. His ability to run and take the ball at pace and take defenders down is something to behold. Max Jorgensen continues to be a force. I was honestly kind of hoping they would throw him at wing, maybe give Dylan Page a break. But, hey, it works out, not only with his boot, but with his continual ability to run with the ball. Obviously, they're not really showcasing his scoring and finishing ability, but I think he's doing a good job at where he's at right now. As for the rest of the team, they continue to be physical at the attack. Yes, you kind of had a problem with Harry Johnson Holmes, but, the rest of the team is really proving it. They're coming at them with a new vigor. I love to see that them, they're really playing for Darren Coleman, and that's wonderful to watch. This is the kind of rugby that I really expected the Taz to be like, and another reason why you really can't fire DC after round 4. I think that these continual performances, even in losses, to really show that you're, never say die mentality is really showing it off. Them versus the Crusaders, I kind of was expecting Chafee, Hockey, and friends to just tear them up with clinical ability, and they really couldn't do it. They won the trench battle. They won fast breakdowns and flat carry with multiple options on attack. That flat 3-pod option that they had for all those on the visual portion off of 10, brilliant. I think that needs to be shown off more in Super Rugby and around the world in general. Losing Revez Rehana to an AC injury really hurt them. Their direction at 10 is kind of lacking. I really think that they're listless, and their breakdown desperation is hurting them big time. They did things, in at the breakdown that I have not seen the Crusaders do really ever. Normally they're very clinical. They know how to follow the rules and do it well, to the point where they just wait for you to screw up. And unfortunately now I don't know what happened to them. Now they're getting a little bit more desperate, hands in the ruck, side entry, diving for the 9 with the ball not out. What is going on with you guys? Perhaps it's more desperation. Perhaps it's, looking to make a home run play, but they have to go back to what's good. They did not have a second half adjustment. Rob Penny really did not show off what everyone is expecting against his own club, to really try to show that I was the better, bigger man in this relationship. Guess not. But, perhaps we'll see. I don't think this is the last we'll see of the Crusaders falling from grace. I think there's more, and it'll be interesting to see how, and if any, how Rob Penny can either revitalize or sink this team deeper into a hole. Christchurch, you may be in for a lot of pain. This may be another episode of the Patriot Dynasty coming to an end, but we'll look for that in the future. As for Mark Nawani-Tawase, I think his hammy looked a lot worse than they're letting on. The dude did not look really up to snuff when it comes to his business decisions and tackling. It was half efforted. Okay. It was bad. And then on top of that, his ability to really move with the ball, they weren't really giving him the ball that much. He seemed to just be there to divvy up attention away from Tane Edmond and friends. And I was not expecting what I saw. Perhaps Darren Coleman just needed, with all of the injuries that they had, him to just come in and just kind of be that figurehead. I hope that that's not the case. I hope his hammy's not that bad, but it truly did look like that. I think that's something to really watch out for in future matchups. Just with the amount of handling errors that Nawani-Tawase and Longy Gleason had, happy hands, the dude is no help. That's something that I think they're going to really need to shake up. But that hooker that they have, I forget his name. I'm blanking on it really hard, but he is him. For the last 2 weeks, I've seen him run around the block, hit people hard, and I mean like boom fuzz. And on top of that, he carries the ball with great turnover pace and to distribute. Not a lot of big men can do what he does. I hope he gets himself a Wallabies cap under Joe Schmidt. They're putting their hands up. Please don't miss them because they'll be great coming up. I really would love to see them in the semifinals, but here's the hoping, crossing my fingers. As for the MLR, I really was kind of disappointed, as I said earlier, with the amount of play that what I saw out of them. I did have a plan to really get into the nitty gritty of every game, but I won't sugarcoat it for you. A lot of the games were a little trash to me. This is probably one of the worst opening weekends that I've seen out of the MLR, not only in broadcast quality, but in terms of quality on the field. Outside of really New England really playing well, the rest of the teams did not look really up to snuff in what I had expected. I mean, the newbies looked better than what I saw. That's how bad it was. I guess I'll do a little bit of a top 5 takeaways, if I can, of the rest of the weekend outside of the NOLA game, which is the only game I could really stomach to watch all the way through. But in terms of broadcast quality, just a little bit of a rant. How could you say that you could do it for cheaper and for better, and then it got that bad? That's all I will say. But y'all need work. Anyway, as for the NOLA top 5 takeaways for me, I think NOLA played very aggressive, but they continue to miss the wide openings that are when going for the line. Just like Fiji, they had 3 guys shift over, no one guarding the blind side. And unfortunately, lucky for them, Old Glory did not do anything to that, because if I was that 9 or that loose forward, I would have just dived left and taken it. The scrums and lineouts were atrocious. Rodney Iona, I definitely think is going to be able to keep his job at the next few years. We saw their first round pick, who was signed for 10, get moved over to wing. I'm not sure what happened to that. Obviously, they want to use his pace. Perhaps they're going to try to maybe have him learn from Iona, but almost be like a double pivot at wing. I think that'll be an interesting move to go for. Excuse my bunny, by the way. It's just an interesting. I think they're in a better spot though than Old Glory in terms of like where they were going. Old Glory looks so much different from last year. I think losing their attack coach to Dallas has really hurt them, just because of the fact that while they do have Kurt Baker leading that attack, I don't know. It's just like it was a lack of identity, I guess you could say, because like between the back 3 missing opportunities, more of a kick tennis game going on, their front props and front row down to the second row really not having that much of an impact in terms of running with ball in hand. It makes me nervous. They're not the same team offensively when it comes to spinning the ball out wide, playing a little bit more gusto in that carry, and I think that's something that we need to watch out for the rest of the year. Obviously, the score was low, and the only thing really doing that was the amount of offloading knocks on both sides. Every team was trying to go for the home run hit, and it just was not that great. I don't know how I was able to stomach watching all 80 of that. As for the rest of them, I watched highlights. I watched a little bit of the Houston game. That game was really slow. I couldn't really give you a great analysis on that one. But for the rest of them, I think my biggest takeaways were that the top has really fallen. I mean, obviously Seattle was very clinical. They continued with their new signings despite their cast-offs that they let go, specifically AJ Alatimu, to really put themselves up as that consistent leader, I think, in the MLR. While I hate to see them really succeed because, they're like the Alabama of the MLR, they continue to just, not only through Inafuti and through Tavita Lopetti, really put themselves out there just as a constant attacking. We're not going to really destroy you, but we're going to expose you for everything that you're worth. Excuse me. Sorry for that interruption. A little bit of a bunny technical difficulty. As I was saying, just really putting themselves up for that. We're not going to really defeat you, but we're going to blow you away based off your mistakes. And he really shows up. San Diego did not look that great. Whether it was just the more Fijian style of play or just the overall lack of urgency. Perhaps, they had some work, but they just look frantic overall. I think a lot of their new signings have not gelled well. Perhaps they need a little bit more chemistry with that group to continue to keep playing, but we'll have to wait and see it for that. As for the good things, I really thought that ATL kind of looked good. I think their vast swath of fire sale that they had when moving to LA has really put themselves into a different space to carry with different ball in hand movement. Obviously we got to see a lot of flashes through. What are you doing down there? Sorry about that. With Rita Bill and friends, just kind of taking the ball and just playing with it in hand. But now looking at what they have with Jason Emery, Andrew Coe and friends, they can just attack every area of the field with intensity that I haven't seen. They had plays out wide where cross kicks were made. I think that was the highlight play of the weekend. That just drop in the hands of Andrew Coe was amazing. Their ability to really hit downfield lanes, they're looking kind of vintage for the Rattlers. That ability to just hit that rush line and boom, just smack somebody in the mouth. I really loved what they had. I think the biggest thing that they continue to miss, though, is their set piece dominance, and that showed with Dallas obviously taking it in. Gola and friends are just going to continue to hammer that home. Their set piece dominance was insane. I probably should go back and watch the rest of the game to see how the rest of their wide play was with their signings. They had a lot of good signings out of Canada, specifically Mitch Richardson, but their set piece forward dominance, impressive. I loved watching that. Obviously that was the linchpin for the day. This continually to set themselves up in good field position, getting those kicks in, beautiful done. Dallas is really getting up there, but I think ATL/LA has hope to really translate their on-field success at the wide spots to really move forward. They just have to fix that set piece. You do that, they could be a deadly team. I definitely watch them. I think it was surprising to watch that it would be an empty stadium. Perhaps it's a little bit of a curse in that regard to being at Dignity Health. Every team that plays there, other than the Galaxy, continues to just be an away game situation. I really don't know what else to say. It's an interesting place to play, but I think they're going to have to really show up and show out to really get LA fans in, especially on good games. And we're going to see. The test is on. Can they answer? As for Anthem, obviously the score is a massive blowout. I really wasn't expecting it to be that bad. I think New England, man, they continue to just go off in every way imaginable. Not only in attack, but in defense. They just didn't miss a beat despite losing their defense coach. Wow. I'm really, really impressed. They brought everything. Reese McDonald was doing all types of things. I think he's easy early MVP consideration. He definitely deserves a USA cap if he's eligible at that spot. Because, wow, his pickoff pass on that wide sailing ball out to the wing, impressive. I'm very impressed with that. His just ability to not only dance around you, but just attack straight cannot be overstated. But I think the beauty of that is that Anthem, despite being constantly on the back foot, really had that never say die mentality when they were able to really push the attack. And they did a couple times. They had a great ability to just put New England in interesting situations. I think they've really mastered that ability with young developing talent to just be able to hit those little openings in the backfield, which obviously Tyron Al-Jabori scored a magical try off of a backspin kick. You had a whole bunch of movements in the center position to the loose forwards. I love that. I'm seeing flashes of where they could go. And I despite the fact of me kind of hating it early, you guys are kind of changing my mind here. I'm really liking what I see out of Anthem. You guys could probably get maybe middle of the pack, maybe push yourself into that consideration to be in a quarterfinal spot. You have the shot, obviously going up against the defending champs who majority of their team is still up there. From that roster from last year, is a hard opening, but I think you left a lot of good things on the table, enough for a turnaround to come very quickly. As for Chicago, I thought that was probably the weirdest game. I wasn't really expecting it to be that snippy. Obviously, against Miami in the rain of all things, I think it really hindered their ability to really play how they wanted to. Billy Meeks at 10 was already a weird combo. I wasn't really expecting that. I was expecting Luke Carty to really still maintain his spot, but perhaps they wanted to put Billy Meeks in there just because of his managerial skills. But the rain really stopped, I think, their ability to kick and kind of spread that ball wide. They played very physical from front to back. I think Miami, despite having also a never say die mentality, really hurt themselves. It was probably one of the most carded games next to that ATL LA game. There were cards about the entire weekend, but I think Miami really hurt themselves out. They had 2-3 penalty tries off of them all. They were able to spin it. Tomas Kubeli looked amazing. You had guys like Iscaro. They were moving. They just couldn't translate it. You got to be able to stop the penalties in order to continue to move the ball with yourself. And I think that matters. Despite the fact of ATL and Miami continuing to hold that almost 100% goal line margin when it comes to kicking, you need more, especially against an explosive team like Chicago. And with the new signs that Chicago has, they can either bully you up front, which they were desperately missing last year, specifically at the scrum and at the maul, to now, continue to move it out wide. I think if the rain was gone, that would have been an entirely different game. You just got to really play around with that lineup. They're a really deep team, and they're a different team from last year with a majority of their departures coming from the forward pack. And you really could see that specifically through their loose forwards. If they continue to play like this, up the Hounds, baby. I think we're going to make number 2. But here's to crossing our fingers on that one. But that's really what I had to really take over from the MLR games from this weekend. As for a cross code thing, while I wasn't really able to, unfortunately, attend the Nines tournament or the league tournament in Vegas, I've heard a lot of good things. Up the mongrel, baby, for all my virtual visual contenders. Hey, what can I say? Women's team, we did solid. Men's, for what we had, I think we did pretty good. I was watching you guys, and I'm very proud to see that you guys at least brought that same dog in you out there. We balled out. Good to see. In terms of their festivities, obviously the NRL has taken a lot of care to really bridge the gap to USA fans in Vegas. I think they did a great job through all their festivities, not only on Fremont Street, in Resort World, also in the surrounding areas, bringing a lot of the bar people together. Great. I don't understand how the MLR can't do this. Obviously, they don't have that kind of budget, but, ideas, slight promotions, anything. Y'all can't be just getting butchered like that. As for attendance, everyone said it wouldn't work. We got official numbers. Almost 47,000 people went to Allegiant. That should show you something. League is here to stay, I think, in America. I think we've translated that. A lot of Union fans really decided to go. I'm glad they did. The games were great. The Rabbitohs were really taking it to them. The Broncos, obviously, they got a little shellacked. I'm not going to lie. But, the Roosters still got a couple guys. Obviously, both of their highlight players are coming to Super Rugby. But, enjoy it while you have it, I guess. Great festivities, though. I think there needs to be a pro team here. They need to get into these NFL stadiums if you have the budget. Maybe when Super Rugby merges with the MLR, that'll happen. Maybe if the NRL ever comes to America, maybe that'll happen. But you could see the seeds were planted for a lot of things. You had celebrities there. A lot of big ownership from the Raiders were there. Football players showed up. I think a lot. I saw a couple Rams players on the broadcast on that sideline for the pitch. There's opportunities, and the crossover with the NFL, I think it's an easy translation for all of rugby to really learn. So for all my football fans, all my casual rugby fans, I think it's a great time to get into league. You have a lot of opportunities this year. I think the tournament's going to be very well done, especially with the addition of RTS coming back to league. Obviously you have Mark Nawani Tawase coming in next year. The stage is set. I think the broadcast quality continues to excel over Super Rugby. Obviously leaps and bounds over the MLR as well. So if they continue to do this, they could poach a lot of fans. And I can't say I would be sad. I wouldn't be sad, but I can't say I would be disappointed either. They're just doing a better job, and you can see it out there on the play at hand. But that's going to be it for me, guys, this week. Thank you a lot for coming, and I will see you next time. Oh, wait. Before I forget, in terms of where I see our second show on Friday normally going, unfortunately with Super Rugby, I think kind of keeping that Wednesday through Saturday kind of timeline in terms of quick turnarounds with lineups and playing. Unfortunately, I don't think that a Friday show would really be genuinely worthwhile, because Super Rugby would still be having a play that weekend, and obviously the MLR would already be into next week. So I feel like the marketability for that would be kind of low. So I think we're going to stick to now a renewed Tuesday. Allow me to digest a lot of the games, rewatch to see if I can see anything different on Monday. And then come Tuesday, we'll have the show put out. So I think we're going to stick to a once a week Tuesday only. Unfortunately, sorry guys, but that's going to be it. I guess see you Tuesday. Peace.